We are living through one of the biggest changes in history. Technology and work are changing, and so are we. Every day, new technology reshapes our lives, often faster than we can understand it. Grasp what's happening, what it means for you, and how stay ahead. Welcome to The Future Was Yesterday, a podcast where we talk with the leaders who are reshaping the world of work. Because the future isn't coming, it's already here.
Welcome and thank you very much to be with us today, Murphy. It's a pleasure to have you here. I would like to take a second for you to tell us who you are, where you are located. Then we are going to jump to the company you are working with.
First of all, Cyril, thank you for having me in your podcast. Really excited to be a part of the great conversation that you've been having all over the period of time. Well, my name is Murphy John, and I'm the Chief Growth Officer at StorX Networks. We're based out of Dubai in UAE, basically. In StorX, we are in a mission to provide users with a highly privacy-focused secure storage solution. So what I mean with that is we're helping customers, individual customers and users to store their data very securely with the highest level of privacy. You have been aware of the past few years, there were so many incidents that happened where people's data were compromised in the cloud. There were different kind of abuses that was aware. There were different kind of downtimes and reported virus infection, ransomware kind of things where people's individual data was taken up and stored and sold on black. I think only was taking care of providing basically the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure setup, whatever infrastructure was required for various organizations to go online to keep the data secure and kind of e-commerce, email services, web commerce, mobile commerce, those kind of. So my specialty has been working with the infrastructure, setting up infrastructure, managing infrastructure for clients. So that was the whole journey that we started with 3 decades back. And from there, we started feeling that there needs to be a much more better way in which the data can be secured for users. So I'll give you a small example. So when this 30 years back, when data used to reside there specifically in users' premises, all the data used to reside on premises, and people were really very afraid when they say that something like a cloud should happen. Like they were not ready to part their data and keep it in the cloud. It took almost 10 to 12 years for people to convince and understand the kind of benefits that they have when they move on from on-prem to the cloud. And when the cloud adoption started very frequently, then we saw a lot of abuses happening. There were a lot of threats to the data when they were online. And the amount of effort that was put in securing the data went up too high, and the cost was also increasing. So, and then we found that there was a lot of abuses. Still, there are a lot of abuses that was happening. So that's why we started looking for soul searching. Like, is there a better way in which you can secure the data? Is there a better way to store the data online? Is there a way where we don't have to depend upon the hyperscalers to be secure? So right now, what they're doing is we just have a mindset that we are storing data with X and Y company. That's why we know that's secure. So the security should be inherent or should be there with design, not something that is guaranteed by something. So in StorX, what we try to do is we try to take all the advantages of the cloud and we remove the disadvantages which are there, which are stored in because of this central location of storage. So I'll tell you how that also quickly, then we can go to the next question. So basically, traditionally, how cloud works was, and how anything works in the storage was, you take the amount of data, you store it in a single location as a single file. So tomorrow, if somebody gets an access to that file or they gets an access to that hardware, server, or your desktop, he can easily go through your data. He can copy the data. He can misuse the data. So basically, what happens is when you're using traditional cloud, this is 90% in way the data is stored. Most of the data is stored in this way, and people think that, oh, I'm in cloud, so my data is really secure and nobody's going to access it. But the truth lies that the data is always open to the service providers. The data is open to third-party services that they might be taking for securing or anything like that. So what we have done in StorX is we ensure that whenever you're using StorX to store your data, the first thing is in users' devices itself, we lock the file. So that means it's encrypted in the user's devices and the key lies only on the user's devices. And then the encrypted file is sent to the net. These fragments are then replicated and then we store these fragments across all the globe. So that's how we ensure that your data remains really very private, secure, and redundant. So with this process, we ensure that nobody, if somebody is able to access your data or the servers where the fragments of this data is stored, it would not make any sense because there would be multiple fragments of multiple different files. So that's how it's different compared to the traditional hyperscalers. And this is what we're trying to give the users a very secure and privacy focused service.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Murphy. And I would like to go back a little bit because I would like to our listeners have a sense of understanding of the importance of the work that you are doing by trying to tell them a little bit of history of when you are telling that you are 3 decades working on this kind of solutions. So it means that since the beginning of the internet, more or less, we are having these kind of problems that are related to the security of our data and the space that we need to store all this information. And I would like to, if you could possibly tell a little bit about how had grown the amount of information that we are using nowadays comparing with the amount of information that was used when the internet was just racing.
So now, because of the growth of smart devices, because of the growth of IoT, because of the growth of mobile and our addiction, the amount of data that we have been generating is humongous. Just to take that scenario, the data that we have created in the last 5 years is more than the data that we've created in last 20 to 30 years. And we have proper research stating that. So that is the amount of data that can is used. And this is like there is some important data, there is some critical data, and there is some data that's so important that you cannot live without. So that there's this kind of data that is being generated. It's over the period of time, the amount of data that we required for processing the businesses, for processing our lives has grown up tremendously. So that's in simple words. In 5 years, we've created more and more of data than the last 50 years that we've created combined altogether. And this is about to grow in a many huge way again. So it's exploding. It's in fact the data storage is one of the best business to be in today. It has one of the best compound rate of growth compared to any other industry. That's the amount of data that we'll be generating over the.
And I would like to ask you, because when we are talking about these kind of solutions, we usually think this is for businesses that are business solutions that, and for businesses that are large enough to worry about these kind of services. But tell me, if is this also a solution for small businesses, for houses, or that now we are automating our houses, making smart devices and smart networks in our houses, or for digital nomads, for private individuals, for people that it's having, I don't know, crypto, or just for people that is having millions of pictures of their newborn kid. Who is benefiting of these kind of services?
So right from day one, what we thought was we had this intention of giving security and service to all the brothers. So in right now in the organization, we have two divisions. We have a B2C division and a B2B division. So B2C division, we exclusively work with end users. There is a self service portal. People can go online, they can register and start storing in the data. They can start saving in the data automatically. They don't have to do anything. We just have a very user-friendly interface, just like any other service provider, cloud provider. You can start using, storing the data. In fact, we have just to for the users to have the feel of it, we have provided a 2 GB free package. So any user who can go online, he can just register, start storing in data or 2 GB. It's free. They don't have to pay anything. They don't have to put in a credit card. They don't have to share any critical information that is there. They can use to up to 2 GB. And customers who are using our services to back up their data. So they already have their primary location. They have a secondary cloud location where they're storing the backups and they use us as a third location. So it's like they're just extending that 3-to-1 backup strategy where they just want to have the data distributed across all the places, secure enough so that they can at least retrieve in case there is a failure of the primary secondary location. So we ensure them that the data remains really very resilient and robust and accessible any point of time using our services.
And a follow-up question will be for people that is interested in using your services, or maybe using a service similar to yours, what you will recommend to look for when they are looking for cloud storage solutions? What is the important things that we need to focus, or the small printing that we need to be aware when we are looking for these kind of solutions?
So as I told you, the three basic pillars that is required for storage. One is security. That's the most important thing. It's a total no compromise on the security, the privacy, and the resilience of the data storage platform. So basically, it has to ensure that your data remains really very secure, accessible at any point of time. So with this, like if you store your data on a cloud, it should be you should ensure that it is accessible at any point of time. You don't have to pay any additional fees, like there is the archive storage, or cold storage, and hot storage. So it has to be ensured the data is always available at any point of time. That's one thing. It has to be very, very private. Private in the sense it doesn't store with anybody. Your privacy key, the encryption keys lies only with you. It's not with the, even if your data is data is encrypted, the encryption key should not lie with the service provider, because that entails that the service providers can view at any point of time watching, but it gives them the power to review your data at any point of time. And the robustness is it should be available, reliably available at any point of time. In case if there's a failure, if there is something happens, you should be able to retrieve your data immediately at that point of time. So these are three fundamental pillars that I should say you should see, ensure before storing your data with any other service provider.
And there is any, I don't know, international certification of trust, or compliance, or something like this, that a user should be looking at when they are looking at the website, if these service have these certifications or something like that?
Yeah. So depending upon if it's an individual data, they can go for SOC 2 compliance and all those things. And if they are basically a B2B user, they'll have to, depending on the kind of data that is there, it's a SOC 2 compliance or HIPAA compliance or any other compliance that is required in that industry. They should adhere to that rules. Yeah, minimum that I think they should go in for.
Thank you. And services like yours are available to everyone in the world, no?
It's open for everyone.
And now I would like to ask you, because this is the world we are living now, and how is, if you can tell us, how is your point of view, or your perception for the use of this kind of services, or the relevance of these services, due to the increasing amount of AI tools that we are having nowadays, and that it's coming automation, it's coming digital twins, and all other new technologies that relies a lot on data. It's becoming these kind of services more relevant, or is another solution thinking in the next future?
So I'll give you my take. That's an interesting question. So people have different views on that. So what we do is that when we store our data on StorX, we ensure that your data cannot be seen by anybody else. Okay. So now there are cases where people have stored their data on cloud, and that data was misused by the AI tool, and they did kind of research, and they did kind of analysis, and they came out with the results. So what we are good at, I'll tell you from my perspective, what we are good at is seen by anybody else. So we can be the right choice for you. So we compatible services and run your LLM securely on that, with the total guarantee that nobody else other than you can see your data or train your data. So that remains very, very secure and private. And you can train and get the output as you're getting any case, with the guarantee that your data is never going out or seen by any third party.
Okay. And now, one question that it's I think the most relevant for your company, for StorX. What are the common misconceptions that people may have about decentralized cloud storage?
Centralized cloud storage or the hyperscaler. So one thing is, before I start about any disadvantage, I should say they have done a very good, tremendous job. They've done something really fabulous. They have given the kind of growth that is not seen. Without their investment, without their kind of services, the cloud would have not grown to that. So having said that, so what happens is there is some misconception, or there is some, you can say, lack of information that users have. So when they feel that they're storing the data on the cloud, they feel that the data always remains secure. The data is backed up automatically. The data is resilient and robust. But that's not what is happening. So by default, most of the people who they store and their data on the hyperscalers, any hyperscaler that is available in the market, you're just storing the data in a single location, a single piece of file. Okay, if your file gets, if the server, if the location get compromised and the server get compromised, your file is to the hackers. So that's something that is a known fact, but most of the people think that it's not for that case. And the other thing is, when you're taking any hyperscalers, when we talk to a lot of SMEs when we're designing the system, they felt that that system, they don't need to buy any additional security when they're storing it in the cloud. They feel that the security part is also taken by the cloud. So I would just ensure that the security, the backup is clients and users' responsibility. It's not cloud companies' responsibility. The hyperscalers will just provide you a plain infrastructure on which top of which you have to build it. Now, if you want to build in any additional services on top of that, like resiliency, redundancy, backup services, security services, you end up paying them more amount of money, and that ends up taking a bill much more higher. Whereas in what we do is in StorX is we are we're bundling all the services like security, resiliency, redundancy, build it with the same services. You don't have to pay any additional cost for that. This comes in the part of the service that you buy service, a single invoice, and you get all the security built into your.
Okay, and we are just coming to the end of this conversation, and I would like to ask you a couple of questions just to end this conversation. The first will be from your point of view and your experience. Is there any transformation that you see happening by the end of the decade, the next 4 to 5 years, in the use in the way how we use our data, or how we should use our data regarding all these transformations we are living on? And the second, it's how these transformations, from your point of view as well, are impacting the way how we are working, or are maybe creating a new jobs that are going to be necessary in the next 4 to 5 years, let's say.
So the one important fact remains that the data is growing. The importance of data is growing, and the job market around data, around management of data, around management of talent. Because now we see with the growth in AI, the growth of great adoptions in AI, LLM being adopted all across the industry. There's a lot of specialized skill around the job market which will generate. So data is something that remains very, very explosive for the organization. And in most of the cases, it's like lifeline of the organization where you can get in a lot of insight. So the job market would really be growing fabulously around this segment, the data market of data, storing of data, security of data, whereas around the AI tools which manage the data. So it would be like getting some explosive inputs from the data. So I think these are the 4 or 5 areas which will be growing very tremendously, and all specialized in their own ways. There would be people who would be in charge of getting specific data, training that LLM, and predicting how the customers would be behaving based on the past 10 years of records, 5 years of record. They can predict the amount of demand. They can predict how the consumer would behave, what would be the next thing that they will be ordering. So this would be a lot of, I see a tremendous growth in job market and specialization around this area. So that's something that people be able to take it very seriously and look for. And if they want to be relevant along the new generation, which is going to be around data and security, they really have to look into this seriously and start building in the skills around this and areas of data management.
Thank you very much, Murphy. And that's unfortunately all the time we have for today. But I want to thank you again for your time, for your expertise. And I hope it's not going to be the last time we are having a conversation about this topic. And I now want to thank to our couple of listeners. I hope you get something positive from this conversation. Remember that we learn from each other. I wish you agency, a wonderful day, and remember that the future was yesterday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for having me in the podcast.
Hi, this episode is brought to you by Saule. Building for the future shouldn't feel overwhelming. Saule is an all-in-one solution designed to support you at every stage. From shaping an idea to AI-powered customer service. But Saule don't just focus on technology. They help you make sense of it and actually use it in a way that works for you. If you're looking to grow, adapt, or future-proof your business, check out Saule.